What's going on, Packer fans? Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. Day 9 of training camp. Today, we're going to be, of course, going over the quick hits, the key takeaways from everything that happened today at practice. Today was a tougher day to narrow down. You're going to want to make sure you check out tomorrow's episode because there was a lot that happened. We'll get to the 3 biggest takeaways. Before we get there, though, let's go over some of the players who are missing in action because it was a pretty lengthy list. The good news is a lot of it was rest days. So Elgton Jenkins, who has been basically on this formulaic approach to rest days so far, got another one of his rest days. But then Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, and Tyler Davis all receive rest days as well. Remember, Tyler Davis coming off a torn ACL. They probably didn't want to push him too hard, too fast, and gave him that rest day. And then Gary, Smith, Clark, all veterans along that defensive line. Josh Myers was out once again with a personal day. No idea what it is. Hopefully he's doing okay. Now, obviously missed a couple days last week. Now missing another day today. Like I said, no idea what it is. Just hope that, I'm sure it's whatever it is. Maybe it's a positive thing. I don't know. But whatever it is, like I said, hope he's doing all right. New injuries. We did have 3 new injuries. One of them we sort of knew about already. The one we knew about was Edgerrin Cooper. It's interesting, though. The PR staff said hip injury. Matt LaFleur said groin injury. So not exactly sure. Hip, groin, all probably connected. I'm not a doctor if that's going to surprise you at all. But something in that region, hip/groin injury for Edgerrin Cooper. Josh Jacobs was also out with a groin injury. Obviously not what you want to hear or see. Hopefully none of these are anything too major. And then Don Callis, the new corner, is out with a hamstring injury. So those were the new injuries. We also had existing injuries. Nobody came back from injury. Carrington Valentine was out with a hamstring. Donovan Jennings still out with a knee injury. Deslin Alexander with a lower leg injury. Keyshawn Banks with a groin. And then Tucker Kraft remains on PUP with that pec injury. So your total list of absences were Elgton Jenkins, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, Tyler Davis, Josh Myers, Josh Jacobs, Edgerrin Cooper, Don Callis, Carrington Valentine, Donovan Jennings, Deslin Alexander, Keyshawn Banks, and Tucker Kraft. We've been averaging probably right around 5-6 absences maybe. That was 14 absences on the day. Again, thankfully, 5 of those were rest days, but injuries starting to pile up a little bit. Remember, Wednesday was the longest, most grueling practice, and sometimes you do get some injuries from that stuff. Matt LaFleur did say with Carrington Valentine, he was asked if it was going to be something long-term or if he'd be back shortly, and he basically just said they're going to be extremely cautious with it. It's not something that they're going to push through, and it just gave the feeling of there's not going to necessarily be an imminent return here. I didn't necessarily make it feel like it's going to be long-term, but doesn't necessarily feel like it's going to be short-term either. But we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that one. No real updates on any of the other ones. I guess Edgerrin Cooper, he was asked about him as well. He said it was a small groin injury. So hopefully that means Cooper's not too bad and he'll be back sooner rather than later. All right, as usual, we got our 3 big takeaways. My first one, maybe not the most exciting topic always, but today's the day where I think the kicking battle really took a turn. You had Greg Joseph, who did not miss a single kick all throughout practice today. He goes 7 for 7, and now he is at 29 for 31 in camp so far. A 93.5% kicking percentage so far. A really pretty unbelievable camp from Greg Joseph. And it's just to the point now where when that ball comes off his foot, you're just expecting it to go in. It has been fairly remarkable what he's been able to do since getting to Green Bay. He has not kicked that well over the last few years in Minnesota. Been some ups and downs, as there often is with kickers, but sometimes you see these kickers that get a little bit later in their career and it just sort of slows down and they get a little bit more confidence. And we have seen these sort of stories before. Listen, now, let's actually go over Anders Carlson first, and then we can kind of compare. Carlson goes 4 for 7 on the day and is now at 80.6% for training camp so far. So he's 25 for 31. In the scheme of things, right? If I told you that Greg Joseph has made 4 more field goals than Anders Carlson, you'd be like, it's only 4 kicks, not that big of a deal. And that's the difference between a 93.5% percentage and a field goal percentage and an 80.6% field goal percentage. That's basically a 13 point difference. That's significant. And today's sort of the day where, Anders misses 3 of them on the day, started 3 of 6, 50%, made the last one. In fact, the last one was, I think, a 58-yarder for both. That was probably a really important one for Anders, especially after Joseph made his. That would have been a really tough one if he missed that as well. He would have been 24 of 31, now below 80%. But up until this point, it really felt, even yesterday, even though Carlson yesterday took the lead, Joseph by 1 kick took the lead, it really felt like it's just going to be Anders still. Like, it's close enough. Anders is younger, has probably the better leg, and has been kicking the ball very well. It's probably just going to be Anders. Now, a little bit of separation there in a insignificant way. I think Joseph is very much in this. And like I said, today was a little bit of a moving day for Greg Joseph, that now this is really getting interesting. And the one thing I said, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, the one thing Anders needed to do was avoid any big lulls, because we've seen this with Anders before, where he will go for a while making kicks, and then he goes through a cold stretch or a cold streak and can't make anything, or has a really poor percentage. If this is just a one-off, just a one day, where he missed a few of them, all right, maybe not the end of the world. But if that goes into family night and then practice next week, and he continues on a little bit of a cold stretch, that's going to change this kicking battle entirely, especially if Greg Joseph is able to continue to kick the ball the way that he has been kicking it. So this was a pretty big day for Greg Joseph. Again, he goes 7 for 7. Carlson goes 4 for 7. And now Joseph has 4 more made kicks and the same amount of opportunities than Anders has. Next up, Marshon Lloyd. We didn't get a ton of Marshon Lloyd in practice, but we did get one very explosive run. Now, these are always the really interesting aspects of training camp. And these are always the reason why running plays are a little bit tough to always go over in too much detail. The reason being is Marshon Lloyd ripped off a 50-yard run that showed great vision, great burst, and an unbelievable cut in the open field. If you ask somebody else, they may have said that Corey Ballantyne would have had him right at the, after about a 4-yard gain, and would have been able to make the tackle right then and there. But there's no tackling at this part of practice, so it's really difficult to tell sometimes. Standing next to Pete Doherty, and Pete and I kind of felt like Marshon Lloyd was going to be able to break free and make that big run. Standing next to Bill Huber, and Bill Huber thought Ballantyne, would have had him dead to rights for a 4-yard gain. So some of these are very much in the eye of the beholder. I don't really care either way, and I don't really care about the result. I care about the process, and I care about how Marshon Lloyd looked on that run. The vision, the ability to get through the hole and then make a move in the hole. No, again, maybe Ballantyne makes that tackle. Maybe he doesn't, but the move was great. And then the acceleration to the outside and the ability to take it the rest of the way for a potential 50-yard touchdown, it all looked fantastic. And that's what I care about. And that juice, that easy movement ability, that's what I'm looking for. We saw it in OTAs and minicamp with Lloyd. He is just getting back, and he's already flashing some of these, big time run plays. And then later in practice, just a little bit of a check down over the middle of the field. Nothing really to write home about, probably a 8-yard completion, but just his ability, check down to him at like maybe a 3-yard gain, plucks it out of the air, easily turns around, makes a little move, gets upfield, gets an extra 5 yards. Doesn't sound like a ton, but you watch him move, and it is very dynamic, extremely shifty, very fun to watch, and it's just very silky smooth movement ability. And it just is exciting to watch him. And I think that's going to be something that is going to pay off for him. And I was talking a little bit about to Paul Brettel after practice, and I was just saying, I just don't understand how there could be any way in which that guy fails, because he's just so unbelievably clean as a mover, and what he can do both after the catch and in the hole and make people miss. It's different. It's very unique, and it's really, really good stuff. And we've already seen it just in the first few days of training camp. Remember, he tore it up in OTAs and minicamp, but the big question was, pads come on, is he still going to have that same dynamic ability? He got some opportunities today with Josh Jacobs out against the ones. That was what his big run was, against the runs. For the most part, there were a couple of twos in there. Obviously, Corey Ballantyne was in there. But overall, I was very impressed by him once again. And just that dynamic ability was super impressive and just jumped off the field as it did in OTAs and minicamp. And then last but not least, Jordan freaking Love. So he starts off, really nice play to Christian Watson in stride over the middle. Then he has an unbelievable seam route to Christian Watson. Watson's going up the seam. Now, credit to Quay Walker, who is running basically step for step with Christian Watson. Just think about that for a second. Walker's probably a quarter step behind, maybe, but Quay is running up the seam with Watson. It's a cover 2 shot, right? So your middle linebacker is got to carry that guy in the seam, and then you got your 2 safeties out wide, and they have to sort of converge on that. And you've got that little tiny space where it's right between the Bermuda Triangle of the 2 safeties and the linebacker. And you have to make a perfect throw. And it makes it even harder when you've got a linebacker that's running with your fastest wide receiver step for step. So unbelievable by Quay. But then because Quay is sprinting to run with him, of course, he can't just like look back. Like he's got to do everything he can to sprint forward and run with him. And that's what he's supposed to do on that play. And Watson does an incredible job of making sure he doesn't tip it. And he shows late hands. But my goodness, Jordan Love, he zips that thing right past Quay Walker into the hands of Christian Watson right before the 2 safeties get there. A picture perfect throw. And I thought at that point, probably the throw of training camp, well executed by Christian, great coverage by Quay. You could not have asked anything more from Quay Walker in that situation. Just beautiful offensive execution. He had multiple completions to Dontavian Wicks and team. They do the 2-minute drill. It starts with about a 13-yard completion to Dontavian Wicks. And then he follows it up with another, maybe even more unbelievable throw. So this is another awesome play. It's Dontavian Wicks. I'm watching it right in front of me, and I wanted to watch because you could just tell Wicks was cooking on the day, and we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, but Wicks was just unguardable. Like you could not cover him. So and I kind of, you could sense it. You could just sense that Wicks is not getting covered by anyone, and he's just going to beat whoever it is, and Love's going to look his way. So I'm watching Wicks the whole way, and he gives Stokes a little shake at the line of scrimmage, and he has a pretty good release. Stokes does an overall good job of coverage on the play. It wasn't bad coverage by any stretch, but Wicks gets by him to the left side, stacks him ever so slightly, uses the sideline. The sideline's right there. Stokes is slightly behind him, and it is dropped into an absolute bucket. You could not have handed it off any better to Dontavian Wicks, who makes a fantastic catch and then obviously has to go to the ground and complete it as well. Just a beautiful throw, a fantastic catch, route, everything by Wicks. And it was just a picture perfect play once again. And I'll say it one more time, just kind of like the Quay play, not awful coverage by Stokes here by any means, just better offensive execution. Then you get to the red zone on this 2-minute drill, and Wicks has Bullard in the slot one-on-one. There was some confusion. I think somebody said it was Nixon. I'm pretty sure it was Bullard on the play. And Wicks shakes him. The defense brings a blitz, and Love does this amazing job of just knowing Wicks is going to come open. And again, like I said, Wicks was unguardable on this day. And Love throws him a lofted ball so that Wicks, because there's so much pressure, Wicks hasn't even begun to think about breaking on his route yet. But Love knows he's going to win easy. You can tell Dontavian is going to win easy on this route. Wicks shakes Bullard, turns around. He's going to have an easy touchdown. And credit to Javon Bullard, knowing the situation and circumstance. Now, would it be better if he just covered him perfectly? Yes. But knowing the situation and circumstance, he grabs Wicks to make sure that he can't get to that ball and win the game right there, basically. Or I think it would have been tie the game technically. So that was a huge play by Bullard because there was 11 seconds left on the clock. Now the ball goes to the 1-yard line, but there was only 4 seconds left on the clock. Green Bay's offense only gets one play. They hit Dontavian Wicks again, but Nixon and Alexander converge on it at the 1-yard line, push him out of bounds at the 1. Wicks doesn't get in, and the defense wins. And the defense wins because Bullard had the heads up to make sure that he did not allow that completion to Wicks, and he pass interfered with him because otherwise it would have been tie ball game. So it's one of those interesting things where sometimes a penalty is a very smart play. And that was an extremely smart play by Javon Bullard. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Love threw a perfect ball to Wicks that was about to be a game-tying touchdown. And Bullard just made a very smart business decision to say, nope, not on my watch. You're going to have to live to see another play because I'm not allowing a touchdown right here. So a lot of really good stuff. We have more even to cover tomorrow. But of course, this is just the quick hits episode. We've already gone 15 minutes, so I'm going to end it right there. But just to kind of complete things about Love, 2 elite NFL throws. And that deep ball, coming along extremely nicely, whatever. You get my point. For Jordan Love, it has been a lot of fun to watch. And you could tell the rust is gone. This offense is starting to click. Yes, on a day that did not have some key defenders, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Preston Smith, Carrington Valentine, etc. But still, offense did their job and very much led by Jordan Love on the day. That's going to do it for me today. Again, make sure to check out tomorrow's episode where we'll break everything down in a little bit greater detail. Looking forward to that. Should have some more bonus content coming up for you soon. I just put out a bonus episode for members of sort of some of the under the radar players that we haven't talked about as much that are either making some noise in a good way or have maybe just been a little bit too quiet. Make sure to become a member so you can check those out. Either way, I'll see you guys soon. Until next time. And as always, go Pack Go.